This business meeting of the Board of Education of the Cleveland Municipal School District will come to order. Mr. Stockdale, will you please call the roll?
Ms. Ellicott?
Here.
Mr. Billups?
Here.
Mr. Briggs?
Here.
Ms. Jones?
Here.
Pastor Jones? Mrs. LeBron?
Here.
Ms. Peak? Here. Dr. Sridhar? Mrs. Welchow? There are 6 members present.
Thank you. I ask everyone who wishes to rise and participate in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. All right, we are very pleased to be back. Welcome back, everyone, to kick off the 2025-2026 school year. I'm not used to saying that. Very excited. Dr. Morgan, congratulations to you and your team on what seemed like a wonderful first day for scholars. And we'll go ahead and jump right in. First, we will start with our public participation period. During this segment of the business meeting, we will hear all public comment on either agenda or non-agenda items. This public participation period will be for persons who previously submitted the online request to speak form to address the board for up to 3 minutes each. We will have timers available on the screen on either side so that our community members can keep track of their time. As usual, we will limit each speaker to 3 minutes and ask everyone to respect the time limit. We'll get started in just a minute. Okay. First, Luz Rivera Crow. Luz Rivera Crow. All right, Martha Lockridge.
Okay, let's try again. Good evening, members of the school board, Dr. Morgan, CMSD educators, and members of the community. My name is Martha Lockridge, and I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you again. As before, I'm here representing 2 partner organizations that are proud to collaborate with the district: Montessori Development Partnerships, MDP for short, and the Montessori Advisory Council, which was formerly known as the Montessori Campus Advisory Board. Last time I spoke, I mentioned it was mostly about MDP. I didn't get through my statement. Today, I'd like to talk more about the Montessori Advisory Council, or share some thoughts. So the advisory board was formed in 2020 to steward the merger of a charter school and a district school that created Stonebrook White Montessori Campus. During the last school year, we changed the name to Montessori Advisory Council, revised our code of regulations to include the support for Tremont Montessori, so 2 schools, and revised our MOU that we have with the Board of Education and CMSD. And when you're ready to sign it, we got it ready for you. The Montessori Advisory Council's mission is to steward access to exceptional Montessori education in the Cleveland Metropolitan School District. We urge the board to hold central office staff and school-based leadership accountable for the 5 core components of Montessori: trained Montessori teachers, 3-year multi-age classrooms, use of Montessori materials, child-directed work, and uninterrupted work periods. We thank the board for the investments made to date. A lot of progress is happening. However, we are concerned when it appears that these 5 core components are not taken into account when logistical and educational decisions are made. A consequence is that children do not get the full benefit of what Montessori has to offer. We're concerned when teachers are moved to a different age grouping than the one they've been in training for and have to start over. We're concerned when not all classrooms have 3-year age spans, even though the teachers have completed their training. We're concerned when K-3 students have to walk to a different building for lunch. This takes away from learning and recess time. We request that the board safeguard the integrity of the Montessori model by ensuring that all decisions pass through a Montessori lens before becoming final. The 5 core components are central to the model, not superficial or supplemental. The students in Cleveland deserve a high-fidelity Montessori, not Montessori-inspired schools. Tremont Montessori's AMS accreditation demonstrates that it is possible. In conclusion, I'd like to share a quote from the National Center for Montessori in the Public Sector. Equitable, accessible, sustainable public Montessori programs have the power to disrupt racism, poverty, and structural inequality and transform lives and societies for peace and justice. Let's make that happen in CMSD. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Lockridge. Next, Errol Savage, followed by Vincent Stokes.
Mrs. Ellicott, coming back to the new school year, I find myself thinking about one of my favorite principles from when I first started teaching. I remember that first year I wasn't known as an easy grader. In fact, most of the students that I had that first quarter, I was failing all of them. I remember that principal called me in and he said, "Mr. Savage, what's going on up there? What can we do to help these students so they can be successful?" And of course, I had all the answers back then because I just read them in my college textbooks. I said, well, the students don't have the prerequisite knowledge. They don't have the scaffolding. I had a smart answer for everything he gave to me. But he did something that good principals used to do. He came up and observed me teach, and he took copious notes, and I was waiting with enthusiasm to argue with him over what he wrote down. But he didn't say anything bad. He just said, "You know, Mr. Savage, I noticed 2 things about you. You like to do the talking," and he said, "I'd like to hear you do some listening." And he said, "And you also don't give up." And he said, "I'd like you not to give up on your students." That was really a simple formula. Don't give up on the kids and listen to what they have to say. And then I found out why they were failing. And that problem was as much me as it was them. I think back about some of those people that gave me advice decades ago, and I used to let it go in one ear and out the other, and now I wish I could grab onto it and hold it. Just the way it works sometimes. The people that we should listen to, we don't have time to hear what they have to say. Recently, Mrs. Ellicott, this Board of Education terminated several administrators and teachers. I wonder, Mrs. Ellicott, did the Board of Education perhaps give up a little bit too early on those educators? I wonder, did you listen to what they had to say when they spoke to you? I wonder, Mrs. Ellicott, that how a teacher goes from being hired to up here being fired, who else failed? Not just that educator. I'd hope, Mrs. Ellicott, that the Board of Education would call in the supervisors involved and said, "What happened?" The same way that principal did with me. Because I suspect that if we listened to what those educators said and we didn't give up on them, we'd still have them. I do listen to what your board members say, Mrs. Ellicott, and one of your board members, she's not here tonight, she talked about the cost of rehiring people, of onboarding them. There is a cost, Mrs. Ellicott, mediation, arbitration, and in some cases litigation, and I think that can all be avoided if we listen to those teachers when they're initially struggling and put supports in place so that they don't fail. I appreciate you listening. It's nice to be back with the new board policy that you're going to save so much time on. Maybe you can add to the public comments here. Maybe not. Thanks, Mrs. Ellicott.
Thank you, Mr. Savage. I do not go by Mrs. Ellicott. You may call me Chair. Thank you.
I didn't know that.
Next, Dr. Vincent E. Stokes II.
Chair. Good evening. At the last board meeting of the school year, I stood here and said, when white folks catch a cold, black folks get pneumonia. I said it then to make clear that what may seem small in one part of the city can be devastating in another. Tonight, at the start of a new academic year, I want to remind us of that truth once again. Because this year you will face decisions, some that look like numbers on the page, others that may seem like routine adjustments. But to our communities, these decisions will be felt in the classroom, in the hallways, and in the kitchens of parents trying to hold their families together. We all want better outcomes for our children. We want them to read, to graduate, to thrive. But progress cannot come at the expense of Black communities. History has shown us too many times that when the budget is tight, when schools are consolidated, when the reforms are rolled out, it's Black neighborhoods that are asked to bear the burden. But these communities are not disposable. They are sacred ground, the heartbeat of Cleveland. They are where families have raised children, worshiped God, and held on to hope when hope was costly. If you destabilize these communities, you destabilize the city itself. That's why I urge you this new year, let equity be your compass and let justice be your guide. Let the well-being of every child, not just in some neighborhoods, be in every neighborhood in your hand. Our children deserve more than survival. They deserve schools that uplift them, policies that strengthen them, and leaders who will not only balance budgets, but also protect human dignity. So as you prepare for the decisions ahead, I leave you with this charge. If it advances equity, move boldly. But if it undermines equity, pause and reconsider. Because at the end of the day, you are accountable not only to the people of Cleveland, but to history and ultimately to God, who has entrusted these children into your care. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Stokes. And I want to check again, given the weather, for Luz Rivera Crow. All right, that concludes our public participation period. Beginning at this meeting, the board will move to a practice of placing a number of resolutions on a consent agenda, whereby the board will vote to adopt most or all of the resolutions before us in a single vote without discussion in the meeting. Since the board made the shift to student outcomes focused governance, which is a framework designed to focus the board's work on improving student achievement, we're also shifting the way that we operate leading up to and during our meetings. In order to effectively do this, the board now receives resolutions at least 10 days in advance of the board meeting so that board members have an opportunity to review them in detail and ask any questions they have about the resolutions. The questions and answers from board members, the questions from board members and answers from the staff will always be posted to board docs along with our other meeting materials. In instances where board members wish to have a resolution removed from the consent agenda for in-meeting discussion to be voted on separately, they may request that such resolution be removed from the consent agenda in advance. This evening's consent agenda includes the minutes of the last board meeting and 3 finance resolutions, 2 operations resolutions, 8 equity and culture resolutions, and 2 legal resolutions. The chair will now entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda as set forth in the board meeting agenda.
So move.
Second.
Thank you. Mr. Stockdale, will you please call the roll on this motion?
Ms. Ellicott,
Yes.
Mr. Billups,
Yes.
Mr. Briggs,
Yes.
Ms. Jones, Mrs. LeBron,
Yes.
Ms. Peak.
Yes.
Motion passes with 6 votes.
Thank you. The motion passes and the minutes are approved and the 15 resolutions are adopted. The board will now, this is very exciting for me, hold its first monthly monitoring of goals and guardrails. Dr. Morgan, over to you.
Thank you so much, Chair Ellicott. We're so excited to bring the first of many of our progress monitoring that we'll be doing every month. We'll be bringing updates on our goals and guardrails that the community has been hearing about. The community helped shepherd these as part of the process that the board is using to hold our district accountable, hold me personally accountable for the progress of the system. And we'll be doing these every month at either both or one of our board meetings. Tonight's update is specifically on our guardrail around opportunity and access, and we're really excited to share some updates. Just as Chair Ellicott mentioned, we have given this presentation to our board members well in advance. There are questions that they asked ahead of time. There are going to be questions that you may hear them ask tonight as we do it. And I have my wonderful team right here as well. They are willing to answer questions, put a lot of work into thinking about this, but then we have a lot of work to move forward. So yeah, really excited to share this, and also just excited for for us to be in the new school year. Excited for this year for making progress and gains. So just as a reminder, these are our goals, the board-approved goals. These are 5-year goals. We have a goal around early literacy, math proficiency, specifically focused on algebra, college readiness, and then our 3 guardrails: safety and well-being, opportunity and access, and community engagement. Tonight we're focusing on opportunity and access. One of the things we mentioned at our previous board meeting was that under each of these goals and guardrails are interim measures, of which we will be monitoring throughout the year. This is data that we have real time, because a lot of these goals are summative in nature, meaning they come once a year or they're an end point. And we want a way of monitoring and checking to make sure we're on track. And so tonight we have 2 indicators we're going to be looking at, specifically our career and technical education assessments, as well as our internships under the opportunity and access, specifically around the frame around the district providing career preparation to our scholars. That's one of the frames under this opportunity and access. Oh, yep, this is information I've already shared in terms of us giving this information ahead of time, and also there are other documents that are attached. You not only have access to the deck that I'm sharing tonight, but there's a reference guide. A lot of times in education we use a lot of acronyms. I will try my best not to use acronyms tonight, but there will be some that we use in that reference guide. There are some explanation to some of the acronyms, but also just a deeper explanation to the data dive we're doing. We also provided this to board members 10 days in advance so that they can ask questions about this. And it'll be a practice that we will share as we do both goals and guardrails for information for you to understand beyond the presentation about the data and the information we're sharing. The other thing I would note is that next month, I believe, the board will be approving and adopting the progress monitoring calendar. Right now, we have a draft of that calendar. We've made some tweaks. I believe at our next meeting, we intend to bring some information around our guardrail around community engagement, but the board will be approving a progress monitoring calendar. You, as the public, will have access to the different types of goals and guardrails we'll be monitoring each month, and you should be able to see that coming up. So on to thinking about this opportunity and access guardrail that we're talking about tonight. And there are a couple of things I want to share about this. One, the opportunity and access, the phrase for this says that the CEO shall not implement an academic program that fails to provide access to artistic, athletic, and career preparation opportunities for all students. As we shared, the goals are our goals. Those are the student achievement goals, the things that students should know and be able to demonstrate and do. The guardrails are the things that we should not forsake while reaching those goals. So even though we're thinking about literacy, we're thinking about math, the board has charged us to say we should not forsake providing athletic opportunities for students, artistic opportunities and taking away the arts, and also career preparation. And I'm fortunate that the board has charged us with making sure that we hold these protections true as we're also trying to reach some ambitious academic goals. The other thing to note, at one of our last board meetings, I believe it was in June, Dr. Florence and her team talked about the new measure on the state report card, which is the CCWMR. It's our college, career, workforce, and military readiness. It's the new measure that's on the state report card, and this will be the first year that we'll be measured for it. We've shared this before and showed some preliminary data. Since it's a lagging indicator, we know that the district has a lot of work to do. I've also shared this in our upcoming convocation. We're excited about the progress we made last year, but we know with this being a new measure that will be measured on this year, this could impact whether we go down our star rating. And even if we don't go down a star rating, we do know we have a lot of work to do here. This is the area where we will probably be 1, maybe 2 stars in. And so we have a lot of work to do, and this is the area that we want to live into. As I mentioned before, we're going to be focusing on career technical education assessments. This is one of the ways we can measure that students are proficient in their CTE classes, the pathways. I also want to name, because I've gotten a lot of messages, sometimes they're DMs on social media, or just when I'm talking to people, people ask questions around our prioritization as a district in the trades. And we are prioritizing the trades. When we talk about career readiness, those are the trades. When we talk about pathways, those are the trades. And so the nomenclature may have changed, the way we call it may have changed, but our commitment to making sure we provide that has not changed. And the truth is, we're not providing it at scale. One of the things we talked about through our Building Brighter Futures initiatives, in our high schools right now, only 59% of our high schools offer career pathways. So we know we have work to do. We know we don't have access to many of the trades across our city, and we want to provide that access. The other area we're going to be looking at tonight is around student internships, specifically focusing on high growth and high demand careers and how we're preparing students for that and making sure that they have those opportunities. This is a year of collecting some baseline information. We will be providing updates to the board on how we're setting KPIs and SMART goals around it, simply because even though this has been information that has been available and accessible to our students, it hasn't been an area of focus. And this is our year of really getting into focus and an alignment around it. All right, on to the career and technical education assessment. So all of our students who are in a CTE pathway or course may have access to take the CTE assessment. As you'll see in a moment, not all of our students are taking that assessment, and we have a very low passage rate right now. The interim CEO measure talks about the graduating cohort of students, the percentage of those students passing and being proficient on the CTE assessment. We know that our last cohort that just graduated, the class of 2025, only a little over 3% of those students were proficient on the CTE assessment. Though we've made progress, and what this chart shows is over time, the class of, this shows 3 classes, class of 2023, 2024, and 2025. We've gone up, but we've gone up. In 2023, it was a little over 1%. Last year was over 2%, class of 25 over 3%. We have work to do. That is not what we aspire to do. And it's not just about providing the students with the opportunity and the coursework, it's actually making sure that they're accelerating, thriving. We've talked about students graduating with a SIL, ready to enter into the workforce or ready to enter into college. So we have work to do, and this data shows that. As I've shared before, right now we do have some historical data on this, but not enough information to set a KPI at this time. We will be doing that within this year so that the board will know where our goals are. What this chart shows, and it may be a little hard to show up on screen, but there are 4 colors here. You have a blue, you have orange, you have lime green, and you have like a orange, yellow, gold final color, which that is like the largest category. What you see on the y-axis are the cohorts. So the bottom cohort's 2023, you see 2024, the next bar 25, you see the word 2026, that's that cohort. There's 27 above that, and then 28. We just welcomed our freshman class of 2029. It's hard to believe that we're there now already, but each year we'll be tracking those different cohorts. In the class of 2025, we did have about 5.3 students who attempted 3 or more CTE assessment, an additional 17% that took 1 to 2 CTE assessment. But the largest category are students in 2025 that did not attempt the assessment at all. So this low passage rate is both a combination of us making sure that the curriculum is matching the rigor of the assessment and that students are prepared for this assessment, but more than anything, most of our students aren't even taking it. And so we have some work to do there. I'll be talking about that in a moment. As I've shared before from this previous slide, we have improved the number of students taking the test and passing it, but we still have a lot of work to do. There are some schools that I do want to highlight that are that do have high participation in CTE programs above 50%. These schools are Cleveland School of Architecture and Design on the John Hay campus, Cleveland School of Science and Medicine, also on the John Hay campus, East Tech, Garrett Morgan School of Engineering, we're here, that's one of the schools that are here, John Marshall Engineering, and Lincoln West Science and Health, and then Max Hayes. So these are the schools where you do have over 50% of the students in the cohort in the CTE courses. That doesn't necessarily mean over 50% of them are proficient in passing the assessment. But most of our other schools have very low participation, and we have work to do across the board in our system to providing this. So some strategies for improvement. First, we want to make sure that the curriculum that we're providing in all of our CTE courses are aligned to the standards that are on that CTE assessment. Per the pathway that a student is in, there is a different assessment. So there are different assessments per the general pathway. If it's a more STEM-based related one, or manufacturing, construction, healthcare industry, all these different assessments have different standards attached to it, and we have not been very intentional around what that curriculum is, what are the questions that are on the assessments, and really making sure students are prepared for that, as we do with some of our other assessments. So we really want to make sure that that's something that we're providing. I know this year we have pacing guides that we've provided to our teachers, and then also a data-driven instructional protocol that we'll be using in teacher-based teams to really support looking at data real time and making sure throughout the year students are on track for it. And these are some of the protocols we use in some of our other core content areas, such as English language arts and math. The other thing is increase the number of students taking the WebEx exams. The web exams is the platform of which the CTE assessments are on. We want to make sure we increase that number. As I mentioned before, using data-driven instructional protocols to inform that, and then also aligning our CTE pathways and courses to CTE assessments. It was really encouraging today, as I'm looking out, Dr. Florence was with me, Mr. Leslie was with me, we also had Chief Farmer Cole. We were over on the John Hay campus today visiting classes, and it was encouraging. We were talking to one of the principals, Principal Perez, who's at Science and Medicine, who she was acknowledging the area of growth for that school on the CCWMR, one of our highest performing schools, but still only about 40% passage rate on 40% rate on that CCWMR. And already the intentionality she's thinking about making sure students are scheduled into certain courses, the intentionality and growth they've done on the college readiness area, which is an area we'll talk a little bit more about in the year when we get to Goal 3. But there's just already been a lot of intentionality based on the data that we have that Dr. Florence and her team has been doing to really make sure all of our scholars are set up for success. So I'm excited that now we have the information and we've been much more intentional about that alignment. So what's working, as we mentioned before, maximizing the testing windows, when those testing windows are open, making sure that we're advertising that and that students are aware of it, extending where possible where we can so that more students can take the assessment, and then also setting some KPIs around the improvement of the test taking rate. So right now, improving the web exam take rates from 58% to 85%, and increasing the web exam average scores from 37% to 43%. So these are some of the things, either that are working or that we already have informed hypothesis around strategies we're going to do for improvement. Even thinking about the test taking rate we've talked about before, we've already improved the test taking rate on our OST exam. So we've done it before, we could do it again. It's just a matter of what we monitor. Those are the things that actually we pay attention to. And so we do want to make sure we're doing that. What is not working, without sounding like a broken record, just that lack of the CTE aligned curriculum, lack of intentional pathways to the 8 pathways that the state requires us to do. We'll be talking more about that, particularly when we're talking about our Building Brighter Futures plan. Lack of expectations around this assessment, and also when and how students are taking that. We've talked about just the decentralized approach to CTE. A lot of those things have been centralized, not centralized in a way from a manner of trying to control it, but centralizing it in a way that we're providing some support. Because right now it hasn't been monitored, and we see where we are right now. We have not, we're only providing, we're at 3% in terms of the last year's cohort. So we have a lot of work to do, and we want to provide that support to teachers and students. And then why do these gaps exist? We talked about before, it just has not been an area of focus. So we're gonna be focusing in on it and working on the alignment.
I do.
Oh, sorry.
You can't see it if I'm going to put it on my,
Can you put it on your,
yeah.
we're instituting a new practice, Mr. Briggs. Put it over your name tag, please.
But
Thank you.
Dr. Morgan can't see it when I put it.
I can see it,
Anyway,
though.
Okay, all right. My question is, you say, why do these gaps exist between student groups? It's not been a focus, but isn't that the focus? Why? Why? And same with the high school discovery report. And the conclusions in that, it says that you need strength and longevity of the principal, classrooms with high expectations, supports and developments for teachers, strong classroom and school cultures, community involvement, and I think that is the primary focus.
Yeah, yep, you're absolutely right.
Understand why.
It is the focus. I would say, one thing is we're dealing with where we are right now. So I could talk about where we are right now. It is the focus, and we want to provide opportunities. I think sometimes the means have been the end, meaning that sometimes the idea is like, just let's provide programs. Let's make sure that kids have access to STEM. Let's make sure that there's robotics in school. So I call it throwing spaghetti on the wall and seeing what sticks. And we just haven't been intentional around like, okay, if you're offering that program, does it lead to an actual credential? How are students actually moving through it? Not that they just come that day and have a great experience, or they smile that day, they did a great field trip. And some of the things we've been very surface level about. So we now need to, as we've been saying, level up and make sure we are not only providing those opportunities, but monitoring, is it having an impact? And so I would say it has been it's been something we've been providing. It hasn't been a focus in terms of the intentionality we need to do in terms of monitoring it, and we're upping our game with that.
But isn't it also a primary factor of the leadership in each school building?
Mr. Briggs, could you speak up? I'm sorry, the rain is...
Yeah, I'm just asking, isn't it the primary factor is leadership?
Yeah.
And to focus on that in each of our locations.
Yeah, it's definitely a part of it. So I know one of the things that this past year the academics team has been doing with school leaders, particularly in the high schools, have been meeting with each of those school leaders, talking about the different requirements for the different pathways, the intentionality around scheduling, the intentionality around focusing in on their school-specific data and how students are moving. These aren't areas that we have been focusing on in the past, and they have been areas that we have started and will be intentionally focusing in on. Thanks to the goals and guardrails that we have, the schools now have goals that are outward-facing with that. I don't know if there's anything else you guys would add with that.
The only thing that I would add is that, as you heard Dr. Morgan say, this has not been a part of the report card. And so things that are not a part of the report card usually get pushed to the side until someone says, we're actually going to monitor this and you're going to get a score for it. And so that is one reason why schools have not been intentional around this work. And so it really has helped us that it is now part of the report card, because it has now raised the awareness for our school leaders and our work to be able to say, we now have a clear focus on what we have to do for kids.
Any other questions? Dr. Morgan, I want to add, it's obviously disappointing to see such low scores, and it is similar to our college readiness indicators, which are at about 8% indicating college ready. And to what Mr. Briggs said, primary factor is leadership, and a part of that leadership burden a big part falls on the board to be monitoring consistently, and that's what we've done with the goals and guardrails. And I do believe that in the past, efforts have been made with the best intentions, like you said, and also we've now got a plan where we are monitoring. We've agreed, the board has announced and agreed to the goals and guardrails. You and your team have developed interims, and we've agreed to those, and that will help us track the same agreed upon metrics over time, which is the only way to make progress, right? Like you said, you can't throw spaghetti at the wall. You have to decide what you're going to make sure that you are successful in and that you're going to measure it on a consistent basis. And so that's a big shift district-wide as well. So I'm really glad to see that this process is allowing us to monitor this data more closely.
Yeah, and some of the things just before going into the internship, and some of this stuff I've already shared in terms of our next steps. School leaders now will be regularly monitoring this information. So yes, leadership is key, and that's throughout the entire system. Our teachers are leaders, so they're leaders of their classroom, so leadership is key there. School leadership is key. Leadership at the central level and office, all of those systems need to be in place in terms of the monitoring. As I mentioned before, we have an aligned scope and sequence right now, just in the same way we would do for English language arts. We have that now for our CTE classrooms that we have, and more planning is going into this. This is the work we're really doing with Building Brighter Futures, to make sure we can provide this access at scale and be intentional around that. Also, we talked about the web exam take rates, and then also just the intentionality of those standards in the with the web exam and to increase proficiency in that. So some things that have been working in terms of bright spots, the cohort, CTE cohort meetings scheduled throughout the school year. These are some practices that we want to help in terms of our data-driven instructional protocol. There's also a new walkthrough tool that we are using. This walkthrough tool is similar to the walkthrough tools that we use with English language arts, one that we have with math. And I know when I talk to our partners in education, these walkthrough tools are not evaluative in nature. These are not for us, not for that individual teacher. It's not the thing that evaluates that teacher. But we do need a space to be collecting information to find out where are those best practices, where are the bright spots that are happening in the system, and where are things not working. Not so much as like, teacher, you're not doing what you're supposed to do. It's like, no, we have not provided the support at the system level to provide the support to schools and to teachers that need to happen. And so I'm really excited for the walkthrough tool. We've had a lot of bright spots with our walkthrough tools in English language arts last year. It was really exciting this summer to see some of that data. And so we're going to be continuing to use these practices. And then the other thing, as we've talked about before, research shows that having a high quality core curriculum, a high quality curriculum with pacing guides and assessments that are aligned is a way to move student achievement. Why not for CTE? That's exactly like what we would do for English language arts, math, social studies, science. We would want to do the same with CTE. Okay, moving on to intern.
We're going to wait until the end for questions, but you can put your thing on. Yes, thank you.
We're adjusting and getting through this.
The beauty of this is a low-tech solution before we get to a higher-tech solution, just to be clear. But the beauty is that you can put your green tent over, and that way we'll be sure to get to everyone at the end of the presentation, and you don't have to hold your hand up the whole time.
Awesome. So the next one really related to this is internships. One thing I would note around both the CTE assessments and internships, you may be saying, why focus just in those areas when talking about career preparation? One of the things is it's the information we have access to now, so we're starting with that. This may be a guardrail that evolves over time, particularly with building brighter futures. When we get to a place where all schools are offering career pathways, we may have more rich data that we could actually set some different KPIs on. But we also know that our students, we have put some investments over time into making sure students have internships. And it's one of the ways that students can show their readiness on the CCWMR if the internship is aligned to the area that their pathway is aligned to. And right now, as you'll see in a moment, we have not been intentional about that. It's more just been about providing the internship for the student, which that's great, and we can be more intentional around that, more intentional around making sure that those internships are aligned to high growth, high demand, and we have some information to share. So on a bright spot, there were 502 students who completed internships this summer. It's an interesting data point. Like, it sits out there, 502, And we have collected this over time, but one of the reasons why we are noting that, and we didn't really set goals around this, because like the other one, though we've had structures for internship, there's work we've been doing for getting more students with internships. There hasn't been an aligned focus as it's been related to CCWMR and just some of that intentionality. So I know the team has really been working on the intentionality of making that. And 502 could be good, it could be abysmal. It's a data point. And so one of the things we really want to know is more about this information, more about that intentionality, so that as we're doing this, we can be more intentional about knowing what's expected in terms of students who can get internships, are they qualified to do that, and also the different areas that they are in. There were a couple of bright spots from this past summer. We had the majority of students placed in IT placements. That has grown 8 times since 2021, largely due to our partnership with Cleveland State Universities. I see Ms. Cullen out here, who I know does a lot of work and bridges the gap between CMSD and CSU and has really supported that growth. We've also had manufacturing and construction, which has grown 2 times since 2023. largely due to our partnership with Magnet. So we do have some, and CSU with that as well. So we do have some bright spots of our partnerships and the ability to provide student information on that. These are all the different, and it's going to be hard to see this. I know board members, you guys have this. If you're following along at home, you guys can see it a little bit better. But in 2025, of those 502, these are the different industries. Just naming some of them. You have agriculture, you have arts, business, health science. So these are just some of the areas. We've already shared before our two highest ones. Were IT, manufacturing, and I believe agriculture and food services was the third right behind that. And it varies, participation varies across schools, but we have more students participating in summer internships in Network 2. Network 2 is led by Mr. Gerard Leslie, who is here this evening, which many of those schools are some of our higher performing schools, and we really want to make sure when we're thinking about access that all students have access to it. So that's why it's really important that we think about that. Oh, I did want to highlight some of the other pipeline programs that have supported internships. So we had the Cleveland State University Tech Talent Pipeline that we talked about. There were 152 students in that. Magnet, 85 students participating. Argonaut, 21 students participating. And Newbridge, 19 students participating. So what has been done in terms of implementing these strategies, there's been some intentionality around work-based learning. You've heard Mayor Bibb talk about this in terms of the Cleveland Works, and I know that our academics team has been working with Mayor Bibb's team and Chief Pomerantz, I see here tonight, to think about how are we not only providing those internship opportunities, but the intentionality between work-based learning. This is a strategy that's not, that we're not only thinking about in Cleveland, but many cities are thinking about this, and the more that students can get work-based internships as part of their coursework, as part of their pathways work, this will also help our students be prepared for careers and trades and meet the job demand. I was just in a meeting earlier this month with GCP, and one of the focus areas in a business meeting started to become on preparing the future workforce. And the majority of that conversation started talking around K-12 education and what we're doing to prepare and fill those jobs and meeting the demands. And so we really want to make sure that we're really intentional about finding what our employers and our city are looking for, and that we're meeting that demand. And not just looking at careers of old, but also the careers that are in demand for the future. And that's when we're thinking about the high growth, high demand areas. We also really want to make sure that we're being intentional about the state-approved pre-apprenticeship programs, because if we do the right matching, as I mentioned before, this is a way that students can qualify for being proficient on the CCWMR. And we will talk more about that CCWMR and what it means on the state report card. But as Dr. Florence shared in June, students only need to show proficiency in one of the 11 areas. So it doesn't always just have to be college. It doesn't always just have to be career. It doesn't just have to be internship. There are many ways students can demonstrate, but to be proficient in that, all they need to do is show one. And so to this point around leadership and what we're doing to prepare students for that and our schools for that, how are we tracking that information, and how are we making sure students are prepared, at least in one of those areas? What's not working, really thinking about our partners that we've had and really replicating some of the partnerships that have worked, such as the CSU partnership and Magnet. And, you know, some of our partners have been focused on, you know, offering the internships, but we also just really want to make sure that we are thinking about the matching and that it's related to the student's pathway. We have been seeing some gaps. So when we think about access, we're not only just thinking about access in terms of schools, but we're looking at certain demographic groups. And I know our data did show, particularly among most racial demographic groups or just demographic groups, the data matched in terms of there were no glaring gaps, but there were a couple of gaps between our ELL students and our Hispanic students, which is also an interesting trend, because when we start digging into some of our academic data from last year, those were also two groups, focus groups that we really want to focus on based on our OST data, as well as special education as well. So it is great that we have that information, and also something that we are acknowledging and making sure we have a plan for. Okay, did I turn it? So some of the things that we're going to be working on, I talked about the matching of students, making sure that the internship matches the pathway that they are in, being more intentional around that. Specific supports for ELL students and making sure that our partners have those supports in place, and also just thinking about what are some strategies we could have for the specific, for Hispanic students. And Chelsea, one question I have that will probably be helpful here if you have it. When we think about the gap for Hispanic students, was it just them actually having access or completing the internship, or just the intentionality around the matching?
Yeah, access for English language learners, multilingual learners is a big problem because many of the workforce programs around the city who have internships that take students under 18, they do not have the same supports for multilingual learners as our classrooms might. So there are a lot of things we do in the classroom when you have any type of Lao Code student. Those types of scaffolding supports for any type of project or to participate fully on a team are almost non-existent in the workforce sector at any level. So it is going to be up to us to create that training and level set for all worksite supervisors, as well as understand what projects they have and how to adapt those for an English language learner. So it's a new set of work. We would be the front runners in that, but if we want to hit these numbers and make sure it's for all students, that's one of the things that we can do as K through 12 educators, is teach industry partners and other worksite supervisors how to appropriately do that.
Thank you so much. And that's an important note. One of the questions that board members asked ahead of time, and it's posted in the questions that were asked, were just, what are some of the barriers to students actually completing summer internships? And that's one of them in terms of accessibility and making sure that students have the accessibility, specifically for the demographic group that you just heard there, but also when we think about things like transportation or other other barriers. One of the things that's noted here is whether the internship is paying or not. A lot of our students are looking for internships that actually are summer jobs as well, and are there funding sources for that? So those are all areas we could really step into and think about intentional with our partners. And those aren't things that we can bear that on our own. You guys hear from our presentations that we do on finances that those things are not necessarily areas that we would be able to do solely on our own, and so we really want to work with our partners on these areas. And I believe, that is all.
Ms. LeBron?
Dr. Morgan, I appreciate the story that you shared with about Principal Perez and her intentionality in thinking about ways that she can increase the CCWMR measures within the school. And I've seen in the next steps principal and school leaders as well as teachers mentioned, but I am curious, how is the capacity being provided for high school counselors, especially those with large caseloads? How are they supported to get students excited about the classes that build post-secondary readiness, and when are those conversations starting? Because if some of those course recommendations, like if there are certain qualifiers to get on a pathway, when are we having these conversations to make sure that they're ready when it's time to actually start enrolling?
Yeah, I'm going to bring up Mr. Dean, who is our Executive Director of College and Career Readiness, because he works with our counselors a lot. But one of the things I've been hearing Mr. Dean talk about, two things. One, there was a report that the team has worked with Hanover to do a lot of research on just the pathways that are aligned to the future workforce, what we're currently providing and where there are gaps. And so I know that that's information that his team has been looking at. And then more specifically, I believe we have adopted either this year or maybe it was last year, the School Links. Am I saying that correct? Yes. And School Links is a platform that is going to be used for guidance counselors to help track our students, not only through the process of the career preparation, but also this is a place where if people are familiar with like Naviance or different platforms like that, they're post-secondary readiness platforms, students can do their college application in it. They can do all of their planning from a very early age. I don't know how soon schooling does it, but in some cases you could start in the elementary grades to have students start having a plan and tracking this work. So I don't know if there's more you want to share, Mr. Dean, on the work your team has been doing on that.
Yes, so going back to the counselor piece, it's a reset year for everybody, and they are included in that. So when we have our monthly counselor sessions, they are provided with updates on what we're doing as a college and career readiness team so that they can speak to it, not just with students, but also families. So there's a lot of PD happening around there. Doc, you mentioned Hanover. We have been able to partner with an external organization around research and analytics. So we were doing a study around our current pathway offerings, thinking about how we can fine-tune our programs so that students are aware of what we offer, not just students, but partners and parents. So we've been doing extensive research around how students perceive CTE. Frankly, when the transition from the K-8 to the high school, we have been doing work around preparing our students better in that aspect. We just have found that students have not been prepared or knowledgeable of our CTE programs starting in our K-8 spaces. So that work is currently being done, and we have utilized School Links. We've gone full-blown with it this school year. School Links is our new college and career readiness platform. So if you monitor social media, you would see that starting in K-8, students can document their personalized graduation portfolio. So it's important for students to begin to document their academic journey starting early. So when we talk about the career pathways, that is inclusive in that platform, So students can have an idea of the courses they want to take, but also being able to see the different high schools within Cleveland, but also knowing what courses they offer. So when you think about having robust conversations with counselors, 5Cs, and principals, they now have that interest data about their passion and what they want to do, right? So if counselors have that information, 5Cs have that information, and we do, think about how much more robust and prepared our students can be if they have this transitioning into high school. So a lot of things happening behind the scenes, but going back to the original questions, counselors are, just like principals and everyone else, they are a main target in terms of preparing them for what we know and what we need to do to establish best practices.
I'm going to speak to one of the most urgent things happening with counselors. In the September counselor meeting, we're going to show counselors how internships that we talked about with summer in the school year, those can also be implemented in a similar way. When, for example, a senior has not yet met the competencies to be on track to graduate, they could choose as a school plan or a district-wide plan to get that senior into a pre-apprenticeship program, and upon completion of the pre-apprenticeship, the student would still be able to graduate in May. So there have already been some counselors who reached out, but we are going to share that information with counselors because typically, counselors are an essential part of the school leadership team. They're going to be the ones to give us the list of, I have X number of seniors that will need to take advantage of this plan, and then they will be a part of thinking through what that implementation plan looks like, because we do have certain pre-apprenticeship programs on file at this time. Again, brand new state focus, brand new state report card, but it's going to be all hands on decks, and so counselors will get more information about what their role might be in that space for specific kids to cross stage in May, which is a very new thing for us, but we're definitely going to be taking advantage of it.
Yes, Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Chair Ellicott. Question I have is, how early are we having discussions with students? And why I say that is it's easy to get to 12th grade and then say, okay, what do you want to do now? I have no idea. So where are we starting so that students realize that either eventually this is going to be a question you're going to be asked, or we can start to prepare so they can have the choices?
So again, this is a reset year for everybody, and again, School Links is new. Right now, this platform is available for 8th grade, but will be for 6th and 7th next month. We think that those conversations should start much earlier than that because we think it's important for our kids to draw those connections with industries and careers to what's being taught in the classroom. So again, when we talk about best practices, all of this is in the works because we want our partners to also have a share in the conversation too. So again, it's in the works.
Are we asking partners to come to the classroom and possibly talk to students? I mean, I have no idea, so.
So we have district-wide partnerships that already come into the classrooms now, like True to You, YOU, ACE Mentoring, you may be familiar with them. So yes.
Yes. Ms. Peak, sorry.
Okay, just piggybacking a little bit off of that, and I'm so proud of the 502 students, but we know that, was that a pleasant experience, and how are we leveraging what we've done this summer to make sure that we're increasing that number for next year? And does AI play any kind of role in this? I know that's everybody's question. Y'all love it? Okay.
AI tech. I love the, I can't.
I know.
I like the AI tech. That's a really important and good question. Cleveland's not doing a good enough job of utilizing AI in all the ways. I'm going to start with that in two different ways. Number one, we do have an AI-enabled platform that we have greenlit to help with the matching process. There are a lot of ways this works, but our middle school students are already trying that out because you have to find interest in middle school. And you also, especially with girls, this is a lot of data, I know I'm preaching to the choir, you have to help them see themselves much earlier so that they're not turned off to specific careers that happen to be the high growth and high demand careers. AI is a really great tool to help students. There are AI simulations around career interest surveys, and so within a couple weeks, we can have students taking these mock career interests, answering a bunch of questions, and that mass data goes to our teachers quickly, and we can see that to start understanding for our 8th graders, what trends do we see? When we start internship recruitment, where are we seeing those trends? And specifically, which students do we already know to poll for certain sessions? So interest in matching is one use of AI. On the flip side, one of our goals in the IT space is for every single worksite placement to include two things. One is a application of AI, and two is a different application of data. So some type of like larger scale data monitoring or maybe data modeling. Some of our students did that this year. So we need to use AI as a tool for ourselves, and we need to also embed it immediately in everything our students do, at least in the IT sector. In manufacturing, it's going to be a pretty big deal too, but that's more so like sensors and sensors talking to sensors for machining. The other question that you asked is how we scale up. So 502 is good. I'm really happy to hear you say that, but I think that when you look at the scale of our city and of our district, it could actually be deemed as quite low. And so we need to be aware that our finances in the district are not funding student wages or student programming, but we can leverage partners across the city from multiple occupational sectors and from multiple nonprofits, like all kinds of systems. One of the biggest leverage points is how we're utilizing TANF funding in our county, and how many seats of TANF funded summer wages go towards a work-based learning position. So this year we hit 500. Great. It could be pretty easy to think ahead of next year as hitting 600. The way to do that is to incrementally increase every occupational sector. So IT, we had 150 for CMSD students. We should hit 200. Magnet should go up with manufacturing, but then every single sector should add at least 25, 50 on scale. And so when we lift together, we can not only serve more students, but also serve more interest areas. You should see all of that happening.
All right, level up.
Ms. Jones, did you have another question, or was your, okay. I had a question, Dr. Morgan, regarding the, it's on slide 14, we talked about it a little bit, but the gap for Hispanic students and English language learners. Having been an English language learner myself, I know that there is a scaffolding that happens, right? You're sort of focused on learning English for school first. I understand that there are supports that are needed to go into workforce programs, but Hispanic students and English language learners are not always the same thing. So what is happening with Hispanic students?
What we think needs to happen is more targeted recruitment in certain neighborhoods where we see a lower student population. That happens to also be where a higher population of Hispanic students are. That happens in multiple ways, but school recruitment doesn't just happen in schools. A lot of our partners are supporting this work. I'm going to give a big shout out to Digital C, and LaDonna Norris is not a CMSD employee, but is active with us in schools and in after-school spaces with families, and she and her entire team help us to make sure that not only are we getting students through the application process, we're getting families through the paperwork process because it is arduous, but we're also making sure that students are matched appropriately. So when we find a specific kid who is mismatched, LaDonna sometimes is the one, or someone on her team, to raise it before the student does. We need to utilize some of our other partners that we're not as much right now. For example, Esperanza is an amazing partner. There are many partners who I think can work with us in the way that Digital C has in different parts of the city to make sure that we are addressing that gap. Because to your point, those are two specifically different subgroups, and they have different support strategies. One for Hispanic students is just a recruitment targeting issue, making sure we're providing the match areas that are of interest so they continue through the process, maybe sharing more information to make families feel more comfortable pursuing the process, whereas the ELL supports is a completely different issue.
Thank you. Any other discussion? Dr. Morgan? Oh, yes, Ms. LeBron.
Mr. Dean, I just want to say one of the things that you mentioned when you were answering my question, and I really appreciate this, is the professional development that is being provided for counselors is not only for them, but it's for them to educate families, partners, and parents, as well as the students. And I think that's such an important piece that I feel like is oftentimes missed because the families have so much influence on what the students choose in terms of curriculum and school choice and even post-secondary options, right? And so I really appreciate the fact that you have, you're leading with that in mind to make sure that families are a part of this process. So thank you.
Ms. Jones.
Thank you, Chair Ellicott. Curious, as I was sitting here thinking, there are online tools, and I cannot remember the name of one that's through Ohio Means Jobs, that can help students determine some of their interests. Are we using those as well to try to start the process of thinking about what direction they should go in?
So we specifically are starting.
Do I turn it down?
We are starting with School Links this year, Ms. Jones. And so those other things have been available, but School Links allows us to capture everything in one place and then to be able to track it from our end. And so we'll be able to eventually, as Mr. Dean said, be able to align the pathways in the program to our specific pathways. So then when kids take that interest survey, they know which school they can choose a school based on their specific interest. So we're trying to capture it all in that one tool so we have a one-stop shop for everything career readiness, college and career readiness.
School Link is all.
Anything else?
No, that's all. And as I shared before, we'll be sharing an update every month, sometimes at both meetings, sometimes at one, on different areas. I want to thank our academics team and specifically our team on college and career readiness and the work around internships and pathways for providing this information. And we have a lot of work to do to really make sure we're living into this. And the final thing I will share, when we talk about building brighter futures and what's possible, all of this is the inner workings of what will be possible when we think about getting schools that have opportunities and programs at scale. And so all of it's connected. We want to be intentional around our goals that the board has charged us with, and building brighter futures will help us in a big way live into that. So we thank you for that.
Thank you, Dr. Morgan. The board looks forward to subsequent progress monitoring discussions on our goals and guardrails. Is there any old business? Is there any new business? All right, thank you to my colleagues for your patience as we make these transitions. And the chair will now entertain a motion to adjourn this board business meeting.
So move.
Hearing no objection, this meeting is adjourned. Have a good night.